till he reaches the point of death. And then he says, indeed, I make tawbah now. وَلَلَّذِينَ يَمُوتُونَ وَهُمْ كُفَّارٌ. Neither for those who die while they are kuffar. There is no tawbah for the one who dies as a kafir, or the one who persists with evil actions up until the point of death, and the soul is being removed from him, and the gharghara begins. As the Messenger of Allah, he mentioned that indeed Allah will accept the tawbah to al-abd ma lam yugharghir, and it will accept the tawbah of a servant as long as the gargles of death have not begun. And there is an example of that with Fir'aun. When Fir'aun, at the point of death, after rejecting and persecuting the believers and rejecting Iman, knowing that Iman was better for him, right at the point of death, he said, and he mentioned that, I believe in the God of Musa and Harun, and I believe in the Lord of Bani Israel. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned and responded, الآن وقد عصيت من قبل. Is it now? And verily you were sinful before this, and you were from among those who were haughty and arrogant. So and he was refused, or Tawbah, or his claim of Tawbah was rejected on the basis of the fact that he lived the life turning away from the ayat of Allah, turning away from the messenger of Allah, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, and up until at the point of death, when he made that statement, then Allah Azza wa Jalla rejected that from him. And so, Ikhwan, the issue is that Tawbah should be performed hastily. Tawbah should be performed hastily and as quick as possible, Ikhwan, soon after the performance of the sin or of the action.
I've just got a question on, when the war was going on in Afghanistan, 89, Russia, and the scholars called and said that was the jihad. What's the distinction between that and what's happening today in Palestine and Iraq and other places as such? And why, obviously we don't know the concept of jihad, but what constitutes to a jihad, and is that what's happening now in the Muslim land considered jihad?
Right. As far as jihad is concerned, then no doubt there are certain conditions that our scholars mentioned for the legislation of jihad and for jihad to be declared in a particular place. From the issues that are looked towards and looked upon is the reason for the fighting. Because it does not necessitate, Ikhwan, that every case of fighting between the Muslims is considered jihad. The reason for the fighting is looked towards. And so if the Muslims are fighting for a cause that is not considered Islamic, then it is not considered jihad. And it is fighting, but it is not considered jihad. The Messenger of Allah was asked on occasion concerning a man who fights out of bravery and another fights for his people and so on. Which of them is fi sabilillah? The Messenger of Allah said, Man qatala litakun kalimatullahi al-ulya fahuwa fi sabilillah. Whosoever fights so that the word of Allah is upmost, then he is fi sabilillah. And a lot of the conflicts that we see now, Ikhwan, are conflicts that revolve around people arguing over a piece of land, or people arguing over a state, or country, or some wealth, or something that is not, Ikhwan, considered from the raising of the kalima of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the raising of the statement, the word of Allah Azza wa Jal. Similarly, from the conditions, Ikhwan, of jihad, if the reason is correct, from the conditions of jihad is, before we move on to that, an ayah that would establish, Ikhwan, the importance of the reason for the fighting being correct is the statement of Allah Azza wa Jalla in Surah Al-Baqarah, أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الْمَلَإِ مِنْ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ مِنْ بَعْدِ مُوسَى إذ قالوا لنبي لهم ابعث لنا ملكا نقاتل في سبيل الله قال هل عسيتم إن كتب عليكم القتال أن لا تقاتلوا قالوا وما لنا أن لا نقاتل في سبيل الله وقد أخرجنا من ديارنا وأبنائنا فلما كتب عليهم القتال تولوا إلا قليل منهم. Allah mentioned, would you not look at the group or that gathering from Bani Israel who said to that prophet that was among them, send for us or make for us a king that we may fight behind indicate the importance of having an emir and a leader for the jihad, a king that we may fight behind him. قال, the Prophet said to them, هل حسيتم إن كتب عليكم القتال لا تقاتلوا? Perhaps if fighting was prescribed upon you, if it was legislated really, you probably wouldn't go and fight. And so they said, well, and why shouldn't we fight? قالوا وما لنا أن لا نقاتل في سبيل الله وقد أخرجنا اسمه وقد أخرجنا من ديارنا وأبنائنا. Why should we fight when we were expelled from our land and our children? So when the fighting, Ikhwan, returned back to a reason other than its correct sabab, what did Allah Azza wa Jal mention? فَلَمَّا كُتِبَ عَلَيْهِمُ القِّتَالُ تَوَلَّوْا إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ مِّنْهُمْ. So when fighting was prescribed upon them, they turned away, all of them, except a few of them. When it was actually prescribed, they turned away, all of them, except a few of them. And so from the conditions of jihad is that the fact that cause is a correct cause, that there is ikhlas in regards to the fight, that the intent is one of a sincere intent for the sake of Allah to raise the kalima of Allah Azza wa Jal. Similarly, that the scholars mentioned, Ikhwan, that which is related to the ratios and quwwah. And this is something that is often misunderstood or not looked towards. That there is a ratio of Muslim to non-Muslim as far as jihad is concerned, wherein if it is more than a particular ratio, fighting is not legislated. From that, initially the ratio was 1 to 10. From that ratio was a ratio of 1 to 10. That is, if there are 10, or if the ratio between us and them is 1 to 10, then the fighting, Ikhwan, is and was prescribed. That was in the beginning. If it is more than that, then fighting is not prescribed. And as Allah mentioned, فَإِنْ يَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ, and so if there are from you, عِشْرُونَ صَابِرُونَ يَغْلِبُوا مِئَتَيْنِ. If there are from you 20 individuals that are patient, then you will overcome 200. Initially, that was the ratio. 20 of you, 200 of them, you'll overcome them. As long as you have sabr. And then Allah Azza wa Jal abrogated that verse with the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, الآن خفف الله عنكم وعلم أن فيكم ضعفا. And now Allah Azza wa Jal has lightened the burden from you, and verily He knows that you have weakness. So if now there is 100 of you, then you will overcome 200. And 1 to 2. So that is the ratio above which it is not prescribed, or jihad is not prescribed and not legislated. The ratio is greater than that. Similarly, that there are two types, or that we have two types of quwwah, or two types of power: military power and the power of iman. That Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned, وَأَعِدُّوا لَهُمْ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ وَمِن رِّبَاطِ الْخَيْلِ تُرْهِبُونَ بِهِ عَدُوَّ اللَّهِ وَعَدُوَّكُمْ. And prepare for them that which you are able to, from quwwah, from strength, and from the fast riding